Well, greetings and thanks for joining us today for another episode of Lightbulb Moments, episode number 169. We're live most Wednesdays at 10 a.m., but many of you might be listening to us on a podcast, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or watching us on YouTube. Regardless, we're thrilled you're with us. I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm host and curator of Lightbulb Moments. I'm also the founder of the Qnity companies. What's a light bulb moment? Well, it's a sudden realization, enlightenment, or inspiration, and you cannot start a fire without a spark. So hopefully you'll get some sparks today and through this forum to uh, to to start something new. We have a dog moment, ladies and gentlemen. So give me just a moment here. Well, how about that? That's a first for light bulb moments, a dog interruption. We've had dog showings before, but never a dog interruption. Well, that's the way it goes, folks. Anyway, at Qnity, we're here to take you from what's overwhelming, confusing, and complicated to a clear path towards prosperity. And remember to prosper, manage your ATM, the three currencies we have in life: attention, time, and money. And thanks for spending your precious time with us today. We love hearing from you. Submit a light bulb moment of your own on the website, or certainly use the chat. Certainly keep the chat active. We love commentary, questions, etc. So either way, submit a light bulb moment of your own. Today, we are featuring a couple of special guests, two gentlemen that I've gotten to know very, very well over the last year. Bruce Kellison, who's the director of the University of Texas, Austin's Bureau of Business Research. He's the gentleman on the right, if you're viewing this. And then Matt Kammer-Kerwick, who's a senior research scientist at University of Texas, Austin's Bureau of Business Research. So these gentlemen will be joining us in a moment. We're going to talk about a data project we completed together, significant project, and some super interesting findings that we'll share with you today. Recent episodes, the most recent episode we had was with Jess Arundel and Winona Angles and Will Simpson. It was a great episode. Jess and Winona are from Luscious & Co., two-location business located in Connecticut, and Will Simpson is part of Vish. They talked about several different things, including color management and some good stuff. Lots of good stuff. Proudly sponsored, our Lightbulb Moments Forum is Lightheart Sanders, CPA firm, Green Circle Salons and Forest. Thanks to all of them. Don't forget to check out Money 02, which is Aaron Kuhn-Bensali's podcast, focused very much on money stories. She has some amazing guests, so check that episode out too. We always have a data project going on, and this is a reminder to participate and advocate for a current P&L benchmark study. The submission is still open. We did do a data cut, which I'll get to in a moment. But it's not too late to participate. By no means is it too late to participate, but please do so. The lack of comprehensive industry studies on profitability is an issue, as well as lack of recent benchmarks. And so, as well as lack of standardized financial reporting plagues the industry, and I think it makes a significant impact on profitability. This type of information will help. So certainly participate at the recent 2 to 10 conference, which I'll get to in a moment. We did do a sneak peek, and we did provide some findings to come out of it. This project is with Jared Sanders of Lightheart Sanders, Jared and his team. The data actually gets submitted directly to Lightheart Sanders. And then Matt Kammer-Kerwick, who you're going to meet in a moment, is also on standby for his contribution, which will be a lot of correlations between certain data and profitability. So super exciting project. A sneak peek, well, you're just going to have to wait for another week on that one. But what I will say is we already have some very strong participation. We're already at almost 275 million of revenue in 174 locations and 4,300 employees. This does not include submissions that we got in the last week. So this project has legs to it. And there's a lot of really interesting insights that are coming out related to profitability, where more money is being spent, less money is being spent. So if you're a small business owner, you're going to want to be part of this, and you're going to want to also get the insights. We've got some great sponsors in that. Lightheart Sanders, who we already mentioned, 2 to 10 is a sponsor, as well as Neil. Wella, Aveda Boulevard, and Zenoti are all sponsors for this industry-wide P&L study. All right, so upcoming dates, we had a busy month here between events that we've had: Energize, 2 to 10, ACTS, NEXT, and Paul Mitchell School event. Coming up, we have PBA Executive Summit, and then we have 3 programs coming up in November. November 18th and 19th is going to be in Utah, Salt Lake City, and it's going to be Profit and Growth. That is co-sponsored by Kevin Murphy. We will be doing it at their facility, and we're super excited to be partnering with them on those 2 days. And then at the same time in Austin, Texas, we'll be doing Execution on November 18th. We also have Serious Business coming up in January, and we are doing a Succession Masterclass on the Tuesday after Serious Business. My light bulb moment this week certainly would be 2 to 10, and I won't, so we can get to our guests sooner rather than later here. It was a really special year for 2 to 10. For those of you who don't know 2 to 10, it's a group of multi-location salons that have between 2 and 10 locations. This is our 14th year, and we disrupted our own conference. We intentionally had downsized the conference. We limited enrollment. We made it more of a retreat, and it was phenomenal. It worked. Everybody wants to go back to the same location, same city, same time of year. They want to do it the same. And there's a couple things we tweaked, but it was a very special year. Anybody that attended would agree. Making space was the theme, and I do think that everybody had the opportunity to make space, especially as we go into November. We got an election coming up, we have end of year, we have holiday, and we're planning for next year, so it was a really good respite for that. Gordon Miller joined us and did a wonderful presentation on AI. Gordon Miller actually called 2 to 10 the Beauty Illuminati, something that he's been dying to be invited to for years, and made me chuckle a little bit. We are very intentional with 2 to 10 in terms of who's present in the room, and certainly the right people were there this year. We did do some 2 to 10 was actually founded in a data project 14 years ago. Many people don't even know that. It founded really around the idea of doing a P&L study. So P&L study back 14 years ago is what started Qnity. It's really the original data conference, but there's so much more today because of the community and the connection. And so check out social media for different posts. There's some great posts in terms of some of the special moments there. And what we did do there, which is a great segue over to Bruce and Matt, is at the time we did share the findings to come out of our most recent data project that came to a conclusion. We also shared what we're going to share with you today with the ISBN group, who we partnered with for this data project. So let's do this before we get into the chain study. Let's bring to the screen and bring to the mic Bruce and Matt. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Good morning, Tom. It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you, Bruce and Matt.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here.
The board behind me just kind of stresses me out. I mean, is that your day-to-day world?
We can blur that for you, Tom.
So you gentlemen, I don't think people realize the level of talent that we brought into this project. You guys are, I want to brag about you a little bit. I want to tee up a little bit. So first of all, you're both part of the University of Texas, which is considered an R1 university. What is an R1 university?
Well, it's just a fancy way of talking about an institution that's been classified as doing a lot of research and bestowing doctoral degrees and kind of that high-end focus on research and producing future researchers.
Right.
Bruce, you may have.
There are very few universities in the United States that have over $1 billion of research funds flowing through them every year, and the University of Texas Austin is one of those. That we just passed the $1 billion sponsored research figure this year. R1s are known for bringing in research dollars and from all kinds of state, federal, and local sources.
How many R1 universities might there be in the US? Just about.
It's a good question. I would say most of the major state universities have significant research operations and bestow PhDs. So there've got to be at least 50. I would say 75 to 85, somewhere in that range.
Would you describe the difference between academic and market research? Because you're really coming at it from an academic side. And why does that matter? Why do people care between academic and market research?
I
Go
think
ahead,
those
Matt.
two are, yeah, I think those two are actually very closely aligned. I've spent time in both worlds, career in consulting before I came back to academia over 10 years ago. And it's not like the research that we do in academia is necessarily different than what I did in industry. Some of the biggest ways that the two activities differ is more in how it's organized and how it's run. And so we talk about funders, Tom in industry, you and I talk about clients. There's more oversight in academia to ensure rigor in terms of research. That doesn't mean there's less rigor in practice in industry. It's just there's more kind of safeguards and institutional oversight in an R1, for example, to make sure that we are living up to the responsibilities that we have as researchers. But mostly the methodologies are very common. I will say that as an academic researcher, we often go deeper. We spend more time on projects. Not uncommon to spend a year on a project in academia or longer. In my consulting career, it's usually more in terms of months or weeks that we spent on projects. So I think those are the similarities and the differences between the two activities, but methodologically very similar.
Yeah, the dissemination of findings too is sometimes different. There is pressure on academic researchers to publish in journals and books. And so our findings, not always, but frequently, are publicly available on the study we do.
Good point. Yeah.
Market research is often for specific clients and those clients only. And so sometimes not in this case, Tom, of course, in the study we're going to talk about today, but frequently those findings are not made public and are proprietary.
Yeah, I found out firsthand why it matters, because when we've been doing studies for 12 years, but it really was 2 years ago that we got really intentional about it and started to go big in our studies with the publication of the 2022 Pro Beauty Compensation Study, which went all the way to Congress and I was on with the Chief Economist Department of Education, and I learned firsthand that it does matter. PhDs do matter. People pay attention to it. And I think the level of interest then and the level of credibility, when we have two gentlemen like the two of you, I learned firsthand, completely changes the conversation. So you guys have taken on some substantial projects in the last, Bruce, how many years have you been doing this? And then Matt, how about for you?
26 for me.
Matt?
32 for me.
That's a lot of years.
Yeah.
And these guys actually have a sense of humor too. Matt was very upset this morning that his hair and makeup didn't show up.
There, I've got it taken care of.
So you guys have over 60 years combined into this, PhDs and all these other credentials. Would you just speak very briefly about some of the projects you've worked on? Because they're not just US, they're global. I'll start with you, Matt. I mean, just give our audience a little bit of an appreciation of some of the stuff you've done.
Yeah, I think I'll mention a few projects from consulting because that, Bruce can talk then more about our joint research as academics. But in consulting, I often worked for technology companies, healthcare companies, a variety of different types of companies, helping them understand what their next product should be, how they should refocus their strategy, how they should think about interacting with their customers and their stakeholders. So we used a lot of survey research methods, which of course we used in our project together. And we used a lot of what I'll call administrative data to answer questions that have been posed based on actual behavior or operational experiences by companies, whether that's pricing data, whether that's transactional data, whether that's patient data in a healthcare setting. But it's really a strong data focus to bring evidence to bear on questions that have been posed, to refine and develop strategies for the organization. And that translates very well into some of the work that we've been doing in academia. And Bruce can tell us a little bit about some of those projects.
Yeah, I mean, I'll build on something Matt just said about using empirical evidence. You know, the thing that gets me out of bed every morning and to this job is using empirical evidence to support business and policy decisions. That's the essence of what the Bureau of Business Research does here at UT. We use empirical evidence to help policymakers support the decisions they make in the private sector and in state and local government. And so Matt and I have worked on regional economic development projects in West Texas. Lately, we've been working on the wellness economy and health equity issues. We've taken the lessons we've learned at our business incubator here at UT Austin and applied them around the world, helping regions from disparate places like Japan and China to Portugal and northern Sweden, in thinking about how to develop knowledge economies in formerly extractive industrial areas. No, I'm passionate about turning empirical evidence like we're about to hear in this study into material that lay business owners can use. That part of my job really excites me.
I'll be heading to Africa here next week to look at sustainable community development in some remote South African and Mozambican communities. So we do try to, at UT, what starts here changes the world, and so we do try to span the world in our projects. Although many of them are focused here in Texas as well, where we're based. We are a state university and serve the people of Texas. We also try to change the world.
So why did you take on this project?
Tom, your magnetic personality is difficult to turn down.
Well, there is that.
I think the other thing, though, seriously, is as Bruce had said, what we're trying to do is translational research. We're not ivory tower researchers. We're trying to do research that has impact. We do publish, but we don't just publish. We try to work with communities. We try to work with organizations. Some of the projects that we work on are sponsored by industry. Others are sponsored by typical funders like the National Science Foundation or others like that. But it really is this idea of doing research that is of benefit to people. And then your personality too is a big draw.
So yeah, it was a little over a year ago that we had agreed to do a study that really addressed compensation for a part of the workforce that we hadn't been able to get to, and that was chains. The very largest employers of salon professionals in the country, maybe even the world. And to be honest, we really didn't have the inside horsepower, and I would have never taken on this project without having a lot more capability behind us. And I'm super thankful for you guys. And we reached a big milestone last week, and I mean, we've essentially been working on this almost a year. Really, it started in full on, I would say, February. And just only last week did final report and all of that. And so anyway, I think our audience is ready to hear about some of the findings here. So I'm going to pull it up, okay? And then we'll
Awesome.
go through it together. All right, so the chain study is how we refer to it. I mean, technically it's called the Salon Chain Study, Compensation Data and Insights. So a little bit for our audience to understand how we really determined eligibility. We're looking specifically for licensed service providers. So we're looking for compensation for people that were currently performing services in a chain. We excluded non-licensed employees, or if someone was licensed, but they're not performing services. The majority of this audience was hair. Key metrics, pretty mind-boggling to think that we got to 25,000 data points. And previous studies, we got to about 3,300. This is phenomenal participation. Gentlemen, any comments about this?
You said it already, Tom, the participation and then the cooperation with some of the firms that were part of the study, the support that we had from the industry, that's really what made this study run as smoothly as it ran. These are W-2s, data. This is not trivial information like, oh, we just did a survey. By the way, we did do a survey. But in addition to that, we have the W-2 data, which is very exacting and precise information that is personal data. So we had to develop the systems and procedures in place to make sure that our participating companies would trust us to be able to provide that information. And getting these 25,000 records for these employees is a big responsibility, but a very generous offer from the participants. And that's what allows the report to be as informative as it is.
And that doesn't happen that often. So the best studies are based on this kind of widespread, comprehensive, hard data that we can analyze from all 50 states. I mean, down in the lower right-hand corner here, we got data from salon workers from all 50 states. So these findings are quite comprehensive.
Yeah, I do need to give a shout out to Adriana Arispe from our team because, there was a lot of customer service involved in terms of reminders and, help and walk people through the study. But I think you gentlemen spoke to it very well. And as you said, Matt, this was not just a survey. This is actually a pretty big ask out of an employer. And the trust that that was bestowed on us, that we earned, and I think we certainly, trust is at the core of this, and I'm proud that we were trusted to do this. Our methodology, so we collected W-2s. In addition, so this was uploading a spreadsheet in a format we gave. We were looking for 2023 W-2. We also were looking at hire date, department. We were looking, really importantly, we're looking at hours worked, and we had some other metrics on that. A lot of our findings came from the part 1. Part 2 was just a 9-question survey, which is quite a bit abbreviated from our other compensation studies, which were more like 50 questions. So yes, Matt, you and I in particular, we had to really go through and get these questions down because the participants didn't have the capacity for that. If the more questions would have meant less submissions. But we came up with some really great information out of the question. Anything about the survey, Matt?
Yeah, I think we narrowed it down to the core questions. But I think that, and I've said this in other settings before, so I'm not worried about saying it here. I think that the participants, the companies that were partnering with us, did learn that the survey wasn't as arduous as they were originally concerned about. And so there is an opportunity for, back to building trust, is to accommodate concerns that they had about the burden of the survey, but also recognize that everybody has the chance to learn and that there is an opportunity for people to provide additional information. The behavioral information that comes from the W-2 is really great. The 9-question survey provided us crucial information, but I think there's some attitudes, there's some intentions, there's some planning information that were in the original survey that we could think about restoring now that we've proven that this methodology isn't too burdensome for the participants.
Awesome. All right. So we broke the findings down into 8 different areas here. And I actually broke it down to 9. And some of them we just left out today. They had to do with career potential and geography, and we left that out. Geography, we did get all 50 states. We find slightly higher compensation in the West region, but we probably need a little more data points to dig deeper into geography. So I left that out, but let's go through hourly to start with. So this is sort of the headline here. This is the average hourly rate that we determined based upon using the W-2s and hours worked. We just mathematically calculated it. We did decide to exclude new hires, as we've done in other studies. Several reasons. It creates a lot of noise because of partial year employment, and then you have to gross up and allocate this and that. And then the other thing is, because this was really a study of licensed service providers actively providing services, there's a high likelihood that many of the 2023 new hires were not performing services yet. One other reason why we decided to do this, we found that most of the new hires were in the fourth quarter. So we left them out, but we do report numbers showing the entire population. But this is really, I think, the key indicator for $30.78 an hour. I'm going to show how this breaks down over time. You know, there's certainly a steady rising of hourly rate with tenure. And some of this is linear and it kind of levels off a little bit. Anybody have any comments on this, Matt or Bruce?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
like
go
to
ahead, Bruce.
pause here and focus on this for just a quick second, because the longer you're with a firm, the higher your wages are going to be. And so the challenge for firms is increasing the hours that people work. We're going to get to average hours per week in a second, but the challenge is for owners is to increase the hours their employees work and to lengthen the tenure, which will reduce turnover and training and associated training costs for owners. So this is a key correlation here between hours worked and tenure with the firm, and it's worth paying attention to for both owners and employees.
Matt?
Just the quick comment that as we'll see as we get deeper into this analysis, the number of employees that are in these longer tenured years dropped off dramatically. So per comments that you both have made, paying attention to what you can make if you stay with a firm longer, balanced against the number of employees who actually do stay with firms longer, is something for the industry to watch. We see kind of a leveling off there, but there behind that bar, underneath that bar, is actually a great decline in the number of employees that are in those 11 to 15 and 16 through 20 and so forth years. Something for us to keep an eye on.
Here's just an indicator. If we included new hires, then the average would have been 2754. So that's anecdotal information. So we did show the number that we highlight, which is really without new hires. And then we also show what it looks like with new hires and what a new hire rate was, which was just under $20, 1918. Let's go to a conversion. Most of the averages that we computed were based upon mean, and mean is really the sum of all the values divided by the total count. The median is the middle value in an ordered data set. And so most of the report we used mean, but there are certain points where we also show median because both of them have their meaning. So when we look at the median rate, it was 2665. And that is important for this slide right here because it allows us to do a comparison to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics uses median. The current published rate right now is $16.87 an hour by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We show a number that's 58% higher than that at 2665. Gentlemen, any comments about this?
Yeah, I think it is important to recognize that there are different measures of the center of a distribution, and we're showing two of them, and being able to compare apples to apples, measure by measure, is an important thing to do, especially when we're trying to take our study and compare it to the Bureau of Labor Statistics study. The median is less sensitive to outliers than the mean, so they both have value and are useful measures for us to analyze the system.
Hours. All right, this is really its own deep dive. And average number of hours per week, 24.3. Average number of hours per year is 1,213. Wow, that is that's even lower than what I expected. Any comments, gentlemen?
Yeah, this was one of the most surprising things, but also confirms data that the Qnity Institute has found in other studies, that the average number of hours worked per week is declining over time. And again, the challenge for salon owners is to figure out why that is and how to reverse that. To me, that indicates a lot of slack in the economic system. Employees are able to work more hours, and employers would like them to work more hours because it reduces the costs associated with turnover. So if we get into a recession or local economies tighten, there is some slack in in these numbers, in the average hours worked per week for employees to pick up more hours, get more experience, and for employers to keep them hired.
Now, I know what a lot of this audience is thinking is, yeah, well, how do you do that? How do you get people to work more hours? You know, I'm going to put that one in the parking lot. Just let the data speak as it is here. I think as we're sort of leading the compensation, the earnings piece, and the hourly rate, I'm not really surprised by it, and it's actually pretty healthy. Hours worked in tenure is where the red blinking light is going on, and it hasn't stopped since, you know, this started to come to light. Doing a little math here. The pressure on the ecosystem for recruiting and retaining staff drops dramatically as this number moves. If this number moves 4 hours a week, if this trend reverses and gets back up to even 28 hours of work, I believe in our data set, it was just shy of $1 billion. You know, moving one number. We'll get to tenure in a moment. I think what's also super interesting, gentlemen, is that the hours worked per week doesn't change. And if anything, the most seasoned people are working more hours. I don't know. I mean, I was surprised by this. I thought that the number of hours worked per week would decline as tenure because it's a physical profession. You're on your feet. Any comments about this?
I think there are two things that come to mind. The first is that while we're seeing visually an uptick in the 21 plus, remember that's an area where we have fewer employees. So if we had confidence intervals around these, the confidence intervals would be overlapping, and we'd actually be thinking about this as more of a flat plateau. But to the degree there is a signal here that there is an increase, we actually have a comment in the chat that I think addresses this as well. That what we have is the possibility that some of the more senior workers are spending time stepping away from the chair, maybe taking on other duties. And so we might have some commingling of service hours that are included here, as well as other duties that they're performing as part of their employment.
All right, I'm going to keep moving on here. Annual earnings. So interestingly enough, one of the things that I think is important to note is that the potential earnings, especially in a performance-based compensation system, which is pretty much the norm in the industry, whether it's hourly with performance bonus or it's commission, it is pretty much a performance-based compensation system in the beauty industry. Highest W-2, 372,000. That was from a brand that had over 11 locations. Pretty decent number, huh, guys?
Boy, maybe I need to make a career change.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we'll leave that one there. All right, annualized. This is important because the average W-2 was around $37,000. But remember, the average person is working 24.3 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a what if calculation, adjusting what this would look like if the worker had a 40-hour work week, which the Bureau of Labor Statistics considers the norm. And so that's an important number to understand. It's 64,000 if someone chose to work full time. And so it shows pretty healthy earnings. These are average. I mean, we've got some outliers that are well into the six figures, but at that 11 to 15 year mark, the average annual earnings would have been 84,000 before benefits if grossed up to full time. Any comments, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think that's the math, and I think it comes back to something that Bruce was talking about a moment ago, that there is an ability to expand. There's a flexibility in terms of the adjustment that individual employees can make in terms of how much they work. And that's to your point, Tom, if we could increase productivity, get more engagement, then there's that much more business output that we could expect to be associated with that. But the fact is that there is quite a bit of headroom over what they're making if they were to engage in more full-time employment.
This is a apples to apples comparison with now using median, and the number would be again 58% higher than reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Let's go with tenure. Really interesting. This is where you see a big gap between the mean and the median. The mean tenure, the average tenure is about 5 years. We have a lot of senior people dragging this number up because we found the median 2.3 years. Wow. Now, to be fair, COVID is mixed in here. And, our measurement of tenure was at the end of 2023, how long someone had been employed.
Yeah, another key feature of this data point is that we're talking about employment at a single firm, not in the industry as a whole, right? So I think COVID did disrupt everything, and we're only looking at time with a single firm.
Yeah, we had attempted in previous studies to get to years of service in the industry, but it creates a whole nother can of worms, and a lot of the times that information is not available. Here's another what if calculation. What if we can get 6 more months and still part-time? Again, we're looking at between 750 million and $1 billion. So truly, I think these two metrics, again, scream to me, tenure and hours worked. If both of those metrics move, the pressure on the ecosystem for new hires drops dramatically. Guys, anything else on tenure?
I think that what we're wanting to see is stability. We're wanting to see free choice and flexibility. And so those are at times conflicting goals. But that we want to allow, the industry is wanting to provide for the demand that exists. It wants to enhance the demand that is out there through various promotional activities, to provide opportunity for individuals within firms to prosper, as well as the companies themselves to grow. And I'm frankly pretty impressed with the back of the envelope projections that you've done, Tom, that show that capacity. If you can provide the demand, if you can motivate the consumers to book business, then the employees have that capacity to benefit from that, as well as the firms that are hiring them.
Awesome. Here's where we see a pretty steep decline. And we do include new hires when we're looking at tenure because it starts from day one. So here we notice, a very large number of new hires, 2023 hires, and then 2022 hires. Then there's a big drop. And then you have those sort of lifers that represent a significant part with 11 plus years. Anything else on this, guys?
Yeah, there's I'll just call it an anomaly because we don't really have an explanation for it, but that drop at 3 years is something that's very curious, and we'd like to look into further, but don't necessarily have an answer for why that's there.
Awesome.
Just want to acknowledge that.
All right.
And the other thing I'll say too about the hours worked and tenure is the exciting thing about this project is opening conversations with my own stylists. When I go in for a haircut, they all confirm these data points that the industry provides great flexibility, career advancement. There's their ability to climb the professional ladder at salons, but there's a big entrepreneurial opportunity here that stylists understand, that it is possible to open their own salons too after gaining some industry experience. And again, the challenge for salon owners is how to keep these creatives employed and engaged in many different aspects of the firm. And we know that's going on, but there's huge opportunity here, I think, for owners and employees to communicate back and forth as they balance this industry flexibility that's so clearly present. in this industry with the ability to make a decent wage and build a career.
In the interest of time, I've skipped benefits. I mean, benefits, it showed robust offering of benefits by the chains with paid time off being number one, discounts on products and services, 401k. So it being the full report, I just wanted to highlight some of these other areas. And also I do want to give a shout out to ISBN, who were the partners in this project. They provided about half the funding, and they also provided an open door to their membership. We spoke at their conference in April. So they were really great partners in this project, but also got to shout out the others that were sponsors, including Wella, Throughline, Pivot Point, Russo, Lucas, Green Circle, and Boulevard, because a project like this does require more than talent, it requires funds. So I want to give them a shout out. And then another big shout out to both of you gentlemen, Bruce and Matt. I mean, you did a hell of a job. I mean, this was a very complicated project. Adriana did a great job also. And so a big shout out to the two of you gentlemen. Thank you. And I do want to talk about what's next here a little bit, but before we talk about what's next, with the chain study, any other, final words to come out of it from either one of you guys?
Well, I do think there's an opportunity for people to read the report. As you point out, we did a high-level review of it here. There's a lot more detail in the report, and I think it's fair to say we'd be happy to answer other questions at a different time and place if members of the audience have inquiries.
Yeah, I mean, and as any good researcher will, at the end of a good solid study, the future research opportunities here are pretty clear. Surveys of frontline employees about their experiences at their salons, their career trajectories. I think the industry could use a good solid study on that looks at at frontline worker experience to get that perspective.
I agree 100%.
Well, I think it's a good segue into what's next, which we haven't really talked about much on this forum. And Lightbulb Moments is usually where we talk about what's next. So we are in discussions on something that we'll call a stay study, and where we would really do data and research looking at professionals, not that leave, but ones that stay, that make it past the 5-year mark. What's different about them? It's based upon a research method called appreciative inquiry, where instead of studying essentially the negative, why people leave, you study why people stay. Research actually shows that actually perpetuates greater retention. So we're in discussions with another researcher right now on making this possible. Any comments would be great in the chat. But essentially it would be not a W-2 submission, which is a whole quantum leap, but a pretty well put together research project that looks at tenure, and at the same time look at hours. So Tammy loves this. A lot of people love that. So that's any feedback on that. We're going to continue doing the P&L study. P&L study, I think, is going to be even ongoing, as opposed to some of these other studies that are more niche, one and done. So we're getting some positive feedback there, guys, about the stay study.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stay study is a really good opportunity for us to help the industry understand some of those attitudes, those intentions, the thinking behind what an employee does when they decide to stay versus go. And then companies can do more to help enhance that.
So we've got another PhD that we've been in discussion with. She was a guest on Lightbulb Moments. Her name is Dr. Pepper, Pastor. That's really her name, Dr. Pepper. And she's a PhD. She's also affiliated with Harvard, but she's also Austin-based. And we've had some discussions about bringing her into the data team. Matt's going to be pretty busy on Bruce, you're going to be pretty busy on another project. I think this is an opportunity to brag about the work that we've done together, and how we earned a significant research project that does affect the beauty industry, but from a tangent. So let's just real quick talk about another project that isn't necessarily beauty industry related, but will help. So let's talk about that for a quick moment.
Yeah, the CQ study is going to look at the comparative advantages that for-profit and nonprofits universities have in the nursing space. There's quite a bit of evidence that for-profits have an uphill battle competing with nonprofit and public universities. But we're going to look at some outcome data on nursing and other health affiliated health allied fields to understand the different types of subsidies that go into for nonprofits and publics that aren't often accounted for in the comparison space. And I know the salon industry is a member of this CQ organization, and so there are lots of parallels with beauty schools, I know, Tom. So we're excited. The team we've built at Qnity is the research team is impressive and growing, and we're out there competing for grants and contracts in the space. So lots of interesting projects in the works.
I'll provide a little clarity for the group. CQ stands for Career Education Colleges and Universities, represents over 1,100 campuses across North America. We do happen to have our frequent collaborator, friend, colleague, Linnell Lynch, I believe is the current chair of CQ. I don't know where this woman finds her energy, but she's been a big supporter of all the data. She's the one that really introduced us to CQ. But I do think it's an exciting project in not only how it really takes a fresh look at, call it trades, career colleges, whatever, but it certainly is going to educate us more about cosmetology. So gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Let's everybody give Bruce and Matt a virtual round of applause. Thanks to both of you. You finally get your $1 million light bulb, which
Oh, nice.
you should be setting in a prominent spot in your offices there. And you did a great job in this project. You've become great friends too, and we're doing some good stuff together. And I'm glad that our community gets to meet you guys. So
It was really a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us, Tom.
all right, everybody, we'll see you next week. Thanks for a great episode, Matt and Bruce. And thanks for all of you that joined us today. And for those of you who listen to the podcast or watch the YouTube, thanks to all of you. We love doing it live, but we also love that you guys are tuning in. People tell me all the time, I was with the Canadian last week, and I lost touch with this guy like 5 years ago, and he listens to Lightbulb Moments religiously. So it's nice to know that we're doing this and people find value out of it. So thanks again, everybody. Have a good rest of the week.